Hi, this is John again, the owner and developer of VectorDecks. In this tutorial, we're going to discuss VectorDecks Rails Custom Select Rail Panels button and its object information palette. I covered this before within the VectorDecks frame controls, but the actual controls are within the Rails custom settings, so we'll go over it again here. I wanted to develop a way that I can go in and custom select any individual rail panel that I would like to put that particular fancy little finish in the center. But the rail tool inserts one complete rail object. So I needed to create a way to be able to custom select individual panels within that one solid object. So what I did was create this button called Custom Select Rail Panels in the Rails Object Information Palette. But before we go there, if you notice that we have the Use Deck Info checked within that Rails Object Information Palette. And that's telling us that any changes made to the frame will be passed on to the rail. So let's go back to that frame and let's go into the frame Sundeck Rail settings. Let's tell the rail to have that centered design or that centered pattern installed within certain sections of the rail, not all. So I'm going to leave that all rail centers checked off. Now click OK. Now select the rail again and let's go back to that Custom Select Rail Panels button. Go ahead and click on that. This brings up this window with a top view of the actual rail itself with corresponding numbers identifying each individual rail panel. I also created a way to increase the font size because I found that some large rails made that font size so small it was very hard to read. Over here you're going to see three buttons up top. All panels, which when clicked on, as you see, it's going to check all the different panels within the rail. Selected panels, which gives you control over which ones you want, or no panels. By default, selected panels is checked, and none of the actual rails are checked here. Now, let's say we want to turn on number 2, number 5, number 6, and number 9. So we're going to go 2, 5, 6, and 9. That way here we're telling the rail to go ahead and insert that particular fancy panel within those actual sections. Now click OK and you're going to see that particular finish was only inserted in those 4 panels we selected. It's kind of hard to see there. Let me go back to the Sundeck frame settings, the rail button, and let's change that to black. Let's change that center finish to black. It'll stand out more. Now you'll see it's more visible. Now you could still have all those edit capabilities that we were doing in VectorDecks frame within the rail. The only problem there is that it needs to have its Use Deck Info turned off. I'll show you here. If we turn that off, now we can go into the rail settings and we can go to that rail objects and we can change whatever we want here, the color, or let's change the pattern. And click OK. And then you'll see here that the rail now changed those particular patterns in the center. And it's independent from that frame. The only problem here is that if you do make any changes to the frame, like its elevation, or if you have multiple rails and you want all the rails to be the same, you're not going to be able to pass that information to any rails that have that Use Deck Info turned off. So it's always a good idea to have that turned on. You'll see here it's going to pick up the original deck frame's pattern. So the best approach to this is to make all your rail selections, all your styles, your colors, your patterns within the Vectorworks frame Sundeck rail settings. But to actually control which rail section gets any of those fancy finish patterns, you're going to have to go to the Rails Custom Select Rail Panels button.